Our next speaker is Victoria Freeman. Victoria is an artist and a dancer and performs with Soul Express and L'Arche Toronto, and she's also a historian, the author of a book and another book that she'll speak about that's coming out next year, and teaches history at York University. And Victoria is the older sister of a woman who lived in an institution. So you'll direct me to move this one?
Yes, thank you. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm really glad to be here and to share my story. So my younger sister, Martha, was born with Down syndrome in 1958 and was institutionalized at the Rideau Regional Center in Smith Falls in 1960, when I was 4 years old and she was 20 months old. A photo from my sister's institutional file shows her 2 months after she was admitted, held in anonymous arms, looking up into the camera with a bewildered expression on her face. I cannot imagine what it was like for her to be removed from everything and everyone she knew at this extremely young age. My sister Kate was born 2 weeks after Martha was taken away, which explains some of the timing of Martha's institutionalization. For support workers who have grown up in today's climate of increased acceptance of people with intellectual disabilities, it may be hard to understand the parents of earlier times who made the decision to put their children in institutions. It's important to remember that in 1960, there were almost no community supports for keeping children at home, and parents were told they would be damaging their other children if they did so. The 1960 Ontario government film, One on Every Street, provides a snapshot of common attitudes and expert opinion of the time on intellectual disability and institutionalization. Soul Express purchased a copy of this film for our research for Birds Make Me Think About Freedom, the theater production we created about institutionalization and deinstitutionalization that was performed at the Toronto Fringe Festival this past summer and will be remounted in 2019. But that film, I have to say, it's a teaching tool, but it's very hard to watch. And I don't recommend it for survivors. I think that would just be too hard. The decision to institutionalize my sister, Martha, was made on the advice of doctors and was motivated in part to protect me. But it also reflected my mother's fundamental rejection of my sister because she had Down syndrome. My mother was deeply afraid of social rejection because of events in her own early life, and she saw Martha's condition as her own failure and shame. And as Madeline once said to me, perhaps for my mother, it wasn't safe to love my sister. She could also never let go of her own dream of who Martha might have been. She was never able to fully love Martha or even be with her for very long, though she forced herself to try. My father was more accepting of Martha, but his first loyalty was to my mother. We children were shaped by our parents' attitudes and by the unspoken rules of what we could and could not talk about. Sadly, during her lifetime, we mainly saw Martha's disability, not the full person that she was. My sister lived at the Rideau Regional Center for 13 years. We visited her there occasionally, and once in a while she came home for a short visit. But these excruciating visits were made out of duty, not love. I'm haunted by the second photo of Martha taken at the institution in 1970 when she was almost 12. She stares defiantly into the camera. You can see her struggle to survive in that harsh environment and her incredible strength, determination, and resistance. I don't know what happened to her at Rideau, but in her file, a social worker commented that she didn't have the trust in adults that most children have. We family members always believed the institution was the best place for her, and to the best of my knowledge, my parents never considered that she might be mistreated there, even though the first sentence we ever heard her speak was, "Shut up, kid." Martha was discharged from the institution in 1973 when she was 15 and was sent to live in an approved boarding home in another city. Luckily, she was informally adopted by the woman who ran it, living as a member of her family, even after the boarding home closed. In fact, for 29 years, until my sister's death in 2002, this woman, my sister's savior and protector, loved my sister as no one else ever had. Miraculously, my sister found the love and acceptance that she never received from her birth parents or the institution or from me. And in many ways, she flourished despite her very difficult early years. The change in my sister was immediate and profound. She found her voice. She began to talk far more than she ever had before. Her transformation is evident in a photograph taken a few years later.
Wow.
She is wearing a beautiful dress and pearls and looks confident, relaxed, and completely at ease with herself. This speaks to the crucial role that support workers, friends, and community organizations like l'Arche and other community living organizations can play in the healing of trauma and the blossoming of previously stunted lives. Although even love and increased support could not make up for some of the things my sister did not receive earlier in life, such as speech therapy and more educational support, and I don't know if she continued to be traumatized in other ways, it was clear to all who saw her that living in a community setting was a huge improvement in her life. I, on the other hand, had a mental breakdown and dropped out of university when I was 20. I know I'm lucky to be alive because I became delusional and thought of killing myself every day for about 6 months. My healing began only when I realized that as a 4-year-old, I had blamed myself for my sister being taken away. I'd felt tremendous loss and powerlessness. I had grown up with unrecognized survivor's guilt that had shaped my behavior and sense of myself and made me believe all the bad things that my emotionally abusive boyfriend said about me. I felt guilty because I had enjoyed my parents' love and my sister hadn't. Yet I also feared I would be rejected by my parents and institutionalized as well. I felt enormous pressure to be exceptional to make up for their disappointment in my sister. But worst of all, I felt that I had failed to be a good human being because I had hated going to the institution to see my sister. It was truly a terrifying place to visit. I had tried to avoid seeing Martha. I had felt superior to her and been repelled by her and the other people who were housed there. Deep down, I felt worthless because I knew I hadn't loved Martha enough. I came to see that this was what my mother also felt whenever she saw someone with Down syndrome, and that was why she reacted so harshly to them. Thus, I would say to support workers today that even though the behavior of some family members has been a source of immense pain for survivors and may be difficult for support workers to understand, family members may be wounded people too. In speaking with other siblings, I've discovered that many of us were deeply affected by our parents' decision to institutionalize our brothers and sisters. And many of us have never spoken of our pain to anyone. It was an absolutely amazing, life-changing experience for me to meet the performers of Soul Express. And I want to acknowledge Cheryl Zinnick here at the back of the room, who welcomed me into Soul Express, and to dance and create theater with them, especially because I had never believed that my sister or other people with intellectual disabilities could be creative. That had been one of the ways I had believed myself superior. I was so wrong. It feels so special now, 16 years after my sister's death, to be able to dance and physically celebrate life and to create art with people like her, when so much of my relationship with Martha was interrupted, damaged, or destroyed. Dancing with someone is fundamentally about being in relationship. There's dignity and respect when you meet at a creative level, when you act and react, give and receive, invent and move, create meaning and express emotion together. After the first wonderful day I spent with Soul Express, I cried all the way home and for the next 2 days. I was so moved, so deeply affected, so grateful. I felt a welling up of love and of my need to love. It was the love I had never been allowed to feel before, a love I had been ashamed of and which never had the chance to be, the love for my sister and for myself. L'Arche and Soul Express had saved me. They had given me a place to put that love and a second chance. So my final message to people who support survivors and other people with intellectual disabilities is that your work is very, very important and deeply appreciated by people like me. You never know where the ripples of healing will go. Today, I've met many survivors, their families and friends, as well as people with intellectual disabilities who were never institutionalized, all the people I wish I'd known as a child. I've been able to work with Soul Express to create a work of theater that educates the general public and honors the experiences, perspectives, and wisdom of survivors. That's Birds Make Me Think About Freedom, and that title comes from a survivor. And I hope that you'll have a chance to see that in the future. Hopefully, it will help people understand why we must never again subject people to such cruel treatment. This is something that could not have happened for me without people like you in my life and my sisters. Thank you.
Wow.